I think the biggest factor in my mind was the support he had from the players. Um, I've said before that Louis is really a super individual. Um, had never really managed above double A before last year. There's a lot of growth potential there. And, given where we were and, a lot of the other changes that were being made, I really felt it was important, particularly because of the way that players felt. But also my personal relationship with him professionally, um, created some confidence on my part. So we're happy to have him back. He's been really engaged in terms of trying to build out the coaching staff and embrace some of the other aspects of the organization that we're trying to build out and make more available to the major league team. So it's been great.
Earlier this week, you talked about the fact that the marketplace on the high-end shelf, the Bauers and the Springers of the world, developing a little bit slowly. So how do you assess it right now? And how do you balance when to jump in on that and when to wait?
Well, look, I think that, there are different elements of the market. And I think the players who consider themselves at the top end are taking their time. And it's understandable. Those players have spent, 10, 12 years getting to free agency. They don't want to make a quick decision necessarily. They don't have to, based on their desirability. So, that part of the free agent space is, I think, naturally moving slowly. From our standpoint, look, we want to be a better team, but we also want to make sure that, at the end of the day, we're not just waiting for bargains or, more efficient deals. We actually want to acquire players. So sometimes we're forced to make some choices, and we're more than prepared to do it as long as we keep a certain amount of our powder dry for opportunities later.
You know what the fan base is clamoring for. How much do you need to shut out the noise, or how much are you empowered by the fact that you now have resources that you didn't have first time round?
Well, you're empowered by the resources, but you got to shut out the noise, because we have to use the resources, in a as judicious a way possible. And so that may be possible, tomorrow, but more likely it's going to take place over a period of time. So, the fans' expectations, we understand what they are. We're kind of energized by them, actually, and with the potential resources that we have available. But, the goal here is to make sure that we have a good team on the field and not necessarily, a marquee player, if that doesn't fit in the overall strategy to put a good team on the field, which ultimately will be more important to fans, I think, than what we do in December.
I've heard you say that you don't want to win the offseason, you want to win the season. We know Trevor Bauer is somebody who's been out there, is very active on social media. And you said you think his personality would work well here in New York if that does indeed come to fruition. Why do you think that's the case?
I just think he has a personality. And, sometimes, look, professional wrestling was built around villains. So, entertainment has always been about, good versus evil. And I'm not saying that Trevor is either one of those in either one of those categories, but he's different. And I think that generally speaking, people embrace those differences. They are conversation creating. And I think in New York, where we have a real, variety of fans and attitudes, that I think he would come across well. Now, how it plays in the media or with fans versus how it plays in the clubhouse, those are all things you have to keep in mind. But generally speaking, if a player is performing, they can probably get away with almost anything in a clubhouse in terms of their teammates.
You've had two significant offseason signings so far. Trevor May, one of them, and then James McCann, your new catcher, the other. What was it about McCann that you felt confident enough about to give the 4 years and the $40 million to?
Well, it's interesting. I would say that his defensive work, which was typically good, with the exception of framing over the past few years, which is now substantially improved. I mean, throwing base runners out and so forth. But I think not just his improvement, but his desire to improve. What he did last offseason to try and be better, which I think bore fruit during the 2020 season. It's always been the case that pitchers have really liked to pitch to him.
Yep.
So from a defensive standpoint, I think it was a big upgrade. And then the other thing is, this may sound like an odd reason, but he hasn't played that many games. If you look at some of the other catchers of his age, there's a lot of wear and tear there.
Yep.
And James had his physical yesterday, and actually our doctors found it remarkable, how healthy and intact he is at his age at that position.